Hey everyone, good to have you for our lightning lesson. The topic today is IC to manager and the mindset shifts you need to make to lead with confidence and impact. And joining me today is Tanvi Hungard. Oh, wait, Tanvi, tell me how do I pronounce your name fully?
You were quite there on the first name. On the last name, it's Hungun.
Hungun. Okay.
Yes.
See, I should have asked her this before, but it's better to know now than later.
Now
Um,
it's recorded, so everybody knows how to pronounce my last name.
exactly. That's what I did. I did it for the greater good. All right, let's get into this. Let's go with some bios. Tanvi, you go ahead.
Awesome. So this is Tanvi based in Dallas, Texas, where it's super icy and cold right now. So stay safe if anybody joining here from Texas. Been with AWS for close to 11 years. Joined AWS right out of school, did my IC2 manager transition, and then also moved a couple of job families. Today's session, especially the topic of IC2 manager, is extremely close to my heart because I was helped by a lot of mentors along the way to drive this mindset shift, and session is grounded in some of the stories that are anchored based on my own personal experience leading teams, inheriting teams versus building teams, and so on and so forth. I have operated across post sales, pre sales, product management functions, and seen the 360 degree of people transitions and org changes that also build us into the session for mindset shift. Over to you, Jason.
Yeah, and I love your badge colors, the blue, yellow, and red.
Yep, that's for anybody who's not familiar with Amazon. Badge colors change every as you increase your tenure. So first you're blue, then 5 years is yellow or gold, depending on some people prefer call themselves golden. And then red is at 10 years, and 15 is purple, 20 is gray.
Yeah, gray or silver, depending.
Yeah,
But yeah.
depending on what you want to call yourself again.
True. All right. Myself, quickly, I studied pre-law in college, but I did not become a lawyer, as evident from this lightning lesson. Instead, I went to digital media marketing and advertising. In 7 years, I went from assistant media planner managing 0 people to VP in let's see, org of 40 plus, large P&L, $400 million in marketing budgets. It was just fun because you could spend a lot of money and do some creative stuff. And then I also served on an advisory board for a nonprofit. Then I made the shift to Amazon, followed a mentor there. Thought I was going to end my career at Amazon because I really liked it, the LPs, the culture, the people, the operating excellence, etc. But then I decided to leave after almost 5 years and cliff jump to crazy pre-seed, pre-product startup where we raised 8 million seed on a PowerPoint deck. It was a crazy bunch of pirate builders. It was a fun roller coaster. And then now I'm building Level Up with Ethan. And then throughout that time, I also serve as a mentor to Techstars and First Round Capital. I like to stay close to founders and entrepreneurs. They're dear to my heart. And then I also serve on the advisory council for Harvard Business Review. So basically, whenever they need help and they ask, I do. Okay, let's get into it. Agenda. We're going to talk about amplifying your impact through others. Then we're going to cover the first 90 days, and then we'll take some Q&A. Q&A will be either live hand raised questions or just submit in the Zoom Q&A tool, and you could type it, vote, and we'll answer those. You could also type it anonymously if you want as well. Okay, Tanvi.
Awesome. I'm going to start here with a quote, right? Leadership is basically unlocking people's potential so that you become better. When I ran into this quote a couple of years ago, I actually did not understand the quote, right? Like, what do you mean by amplifying stuff through others? What do you mean by delegating at the right time? And that is where the key mindset shift occurs for becoming a manager from an individual contributor. So here the story is that as an individual contributor, you are so focused on doing the task that you are allocated and then delivering on that task. But as a manager, the difference comes into picture that you have to unify different mindsets over the business vision, in get involved whenever you need to get involved, step back when needed, and still deliver in a timely manner while balancing between the fires that you get from top versus shielding your team to still deliver the results, right? The mental model that you see here is customers, people, and you. Now, how does that translate to the real world? Initially, when I took a team in AWS, which was my first team that I transitioned from IC to manager, that team did not have a manager for 6 months. So the team was basically running in the direction that they thought was the right thing to do. So now we were serving customers. So we needed to abide by the stuff that we had committed to our customers. People did not understand that. And then I inherited the team. One of the biggest mistakes that I did, and the reason I'm sharing mistakes is you all should learn from that if you are planning to transition from IC to manager, is I jumped directly to the problem to start making changes to how people operate, how they should communicate to customers. I did not take time to understand the team, to understand where they come from, and to understand their challenges that they are facing along the way. We will go into that in the latter part, or also feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. We can dive deeper there. But since this is a lightning lesson, we are going to keep it quick and short. So diving deeper into the delegate with clarity. I don't know how many of you have heard of the Eisenhower metrics. When I switch to JSON, I'll put that here as a screenshot in our chat. It basically gives a framework of when you should delegate, how you should um, quantify your tasks between urgent, not important, important, and not urgent, and then create that metrics to define how you will delegate. That was a very good framework for me to establish a mental model in my initial days on how I can delegate, who I should delegate to, what's the problem statement that I am delegating for. That also helped me stay closer to the details of the problem that we were trying to solve as a team and keep the momentum going. Along with that, when you start reviewing that metrics on a regular basis, what happens is you can change course also depending on whether your business or your team is changing course, right? So I'll put that here in a second. Along with all of that, the most important skill set here is to listen deeply. Going back to my own story of not listening to the team, what happens is you end up burning bridges along the way, or losing the trust of the people, or creating a perception that this person as a manager is just running to conclusions without understanding the team situation. And perceptions, Ethan says in one of his courses, are sticky, and it's very hard to undo those perceptions. So be careful about those, take your decisions wisely, listen and build connections with authenticity before you move forward. That's on amplifying impact through others.
This is a great list, and the one common theme between all these points is the skill of EQ, which as an IC, yes, very important, but usually as a high performing IC, you're delivering, moving fast, focused on the results, and that's one of the biggest shifts is towards EQ. The tough part is very rarely do we get trained to build EQ skills. So usually you're doing it through firsthand experience and your team is the guinea pig. So it's tough, but it's very important to build. Okay.
And
Let
just to add on top of that, right? These skills are usually not taught, right? Like I've had so many peers of mine or so many team members also go through their MBAs and business schools and things like that. But as long as you're not thrown into the deep waters and you don't have a space to kind of experiment, create a safe space, make two-way door decisions in a typical Amazon mindset, right? That we drive, it's very hard to actually learn some of these skills of like what do you mean by listen deeply, how am I supposed to put that in practice, right? Or what do you mean by delegation is like just throw something to somebody else and just let them figure it out. That's not delegation, right? Delegation is giving them the right clarity of what they need to work on and also guiding them along the way. Here, I would like to use an analogy of the bicycle, right? Like when we are teaching kids to ride a bicycle, they have assistance wheels. And then eventually those assistance wheels come out. But as parents, we try to sometimes like see when we need to again attach those assistance wheels so that the kid is eventually able to be successfully and independently riding the bicycle.
Yeah, and sometimes you just go straight into the deep end. I remember my my first surf lesson, we spent about 10 minutes on land on the board, and then the instructors just said, let's go. We just started hitting 2 to 4 feet waves, which is, scary at first, but that
That's
you,
what used to happen to me as a kid, like when I started learning swimming back in India, they just threw me as a kid in like 5 feet water where I was probably 3 feet tall, and they're like, okay, go figure it out. I was like,
yeah,
okay.
exactly. Okay. Some other first line manager mistakes. So I like this stat. I've seen it multiple times, but about 60% of new managers fail within 18 months. So, what are some common things that they do to cause this failure? Well, number one, and Tanvi touched on a few of these, they're solving their team's problems for them. They're jumping in at the first sign of a problem or a puzzle that needs to be solved, they're giving the answers. Instead, what you want to do is you want to start asking your team questions first because you you want to empower them and you want them to solve it. This goes back to the coaching and guiding part, right? You're playing the role of a coach for your team. The other one, unclear expectations. This ties in with the delegate with clarity. What's key is you have to be clear with your team that auditing is part of your job. That is how you, as the manager in this case, can stay up to date on the metrics and the trends and the growth across multiple different people and direct reports and then their teams if they have some under them. So you want to be clear with that, and you want to set up the mechanisms so that you can work together to keep track of these. And then that's where a lot of the questions naturally start to form. Well, why is this trending downward or upward? What causes growth, etc. But you want to be clear on that because if you're not clear on it, it could come off as being a micromanager. And I've never met a single person who likes a micromanager. So don't be that person. Make it clear. The other part is this is interesting. You see a lot of new managers and managers in general think that motivation alone, the rah, 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 let's do this for customers, let's drive the business, those things might inspire people, but they can, but it's usually short term and they're not sustainable. Instead, what really helps is inputting momentum, micro momentums consistently. So what does this mean is your team gets small wins, they get big wins, they share kudos with other teams, they receive kudos from other teams. So that's where you create sustainable mechanisms to track those things, whether that's weekly business reviews, monthly business reviews, spotlighting other teams. It could be as simple things like sharing lunch and learns of what you've learned with other teams to scale that. But motivation and the feeling of winning and growing together is one of the most powerful motivator drivers instead of just saying it. So it's kind of like prove it, don't say it. A lot of people skip this and go straight to the vocal motivation because it's easier, right? Okay. Tanvi, anything to add on this?
No, I think you covered it all, right? Spot on in terms of, I really like the point that you made around making clear about the fact that auditing is a part of the job. But the way you audit goes back to the point that we discussed earlier about listening deeply, connecting with your team, and being transparent about what the expectation is and what the deliverable is, what the timeline is, and so on and so forth, so that going back to Jason's point, we don't come across like micromanagers and nobody likes them, right? And there's also fine balance here of when to give credit to your team and make sure they get the right visibility, because nobody also likes a manager who is just going and presenting the team's work without making them feel included about the part of the celebration and the success.
Yeah, on the part of auditing too, when you give timelines, there will be times where it's a strict timeline and you need
Yeah.
to set it and say, look, this needs to be delivered by Friday, whatever, 3:30 p.m. Other times, you can make it the conversation with your ICs, especially the ones who have a track record, have the maturity, have the judgment, and you can say, look, this is a tough puzzle. We understand that. Um, Leadership needs it by this date. So if we work backwards from that, what are you thinking that we you can deliver it so that we can look at it together as a first check review and let them lead that, right? And then and coach them through that process. But that'll help them feel empowered.
Yeah, and also to add to that, right? Like as I built my own leadership style, everybody will build their own style, right? There is no one size fits all kind of a leadership coaching. But as I built my own style, one thing that started working for me was I was very clear with my team about my transparency and honesty in leading teams. And I mentioned to them that usually managers expect that the team fine tunes to the manager's style. I don't operate like that. I want us to meet in the middle and see where we can balance our styles. And in terms of transparency, I've always been clear with my team that, hey, if I can't be transparent with you because there are certain confidential things that happen at the leadership level, I will be transparent about that fact and tell you that I can't tell you more than this, but we have built the trust. So I trust you to go and execute by XYZ timeline.
Okay, so I love those 2 points. The latter, look, your team, your direct reports, they can sniff out from a mile away if you're trying to hide something or if you have to. So Tanvi's approach of just saying it up front, look, these points are confidential on the leadership level and I can't share them, but this is what I can share with you. People appreciate that. And then the point about the chameleon leadership, yeah, it is interesting. I've had some bosses who are, look, this is my way or the highway. Like you're either in or out. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then others who are more moldable, chameleon to their team, both can work. Uh, the key is to be clear on which one you are, so that your team can self-filter what works for
Correct.
them, right? Yeah. Because look, you're never gonna motivate and push someone to work with or for you if they don't want to. So, okay, now great build-ons. Okay, first 90 days. Go for it, Tanvi.
Oh, first 90 days. I think these are the most critical days for any role, right? Like whether you transition in a new IC role or get promoted into a new role or switch companies, switch roles, whatever, right? But from a manager point of view, these are critical. And this will be a bit of a tactical discussion as a part of the first 90 days and what to cover. I would love to know in the Zoom chat, though, who can identify from what series this picture is.
Someone has to know. It's such a good
Someone
show.
has to know. Yeah, I can't believe it if people don't know.
Yeah,
And
there we
that,
go.
yes, Rishabh, you got it. Um, it's one of my favorite series till now, and that translates to the first 90 days. So good, right? A football coach coming from a totally different country to coach a game that is played very differently than what it is in his own country, and to coach and, for the lack of better words, not a successful team, to transform their journey in the English Premier League at that level is amazing. The way he does that is with utmost kindness, belief in the team members, building relationships with the team members, and then making them successful by making them feel that they are cut out for this football work and they can achieve the goal as the football team, right? Now, let's translate this into more of a tactical framework for the first 90 days. When you take on, be it if you take on a team or if you are building a team, you need to understand to the deepest and the most junior most level on your team what they have been working on, and also dive deep with your cross functional stakeholders as to what their goals are, what they have been working on with your team. So diving deep, being in the listening mode for the first 30 days, capturing those data points is going to be critical. In the next 30 days, I would love for everybody to focus on defining mission and vision for their teams, which again, to the extent possible, should be a combination of tops down versus bottom up. so that once you get the buy-in from your team and they understand how it translates to what impact it is going to create on their own careers versus how it translates to the overall org's vision or the company's vision, that just helps everybody to work hand in hand or be more in resonance towards delivering, and makes them more resilient also to any changes that might come along the way. That's for the next 30 days. So we at this point we are at 60 days. Over the next 30 days, I expect that you have clear roles and responsibilities and a well-defined foundation of and structure on the team, and the teams are just starting to execute and have a space where they can come to you when they need to pull the end on cord or are running into conflicts, or there is an escalation or a blocker that they need to get removed with you. That should also be a part of the mission and vision discussion, and also goes back to our earlier thought of amplifying impact through others, where you know when to attach the assistance wheels and when to remove the assistance wheels from a bicycle.
That was great. Nothing to add there. So what I did here, because Tanvi laid out the 30, 60, 90s. So I'll just touch on some other things in a little bit more detail. So in regards to your operating principles, some people call this the how to work with me document. Um, be very clear on how your team communicates upwards to you. So this includes how to raise red flags, you know, and this could be through email, phone call, Slack, text message, etc. And some leaders go as far as title this email action, all caps, and then whatever it is, or title it urgent, or title it FYI, right? It's really important for you to define follow through, to show your team how you want to see them closing the loop, not only with you, but just stakeholders in general, right? It always helps to put a list of FAQs together that you expect for these types of projects, proposals, or deliverables that for your team to always answer consistently. It'll also build a very good habit and muscle for your team to be proactive about it. And it will help them be more prepared uh, going into important meetings, having preemptively answered important questions. Um, and then the other one, going back to the momentum, is just build as the leader, build these mechanisms to celebrate wins, right? There's many different examples of how leaders do this. Some can be every Friday and during the team meeting for 30 minutes, we'll celebrate. Everyone goes around celebrating one wins, or if you send out a biweekly or monthly status report with other cross-functional stakeholders, have a section where you call out the good work of those stakeholders. It could be peers, it could be sponsors, it could be advisors for this, but you want your team to build that muscle of sharing not only your own team wins, but the wins of others. Um, and then you, as the manager, this is point two, it's important for your team to know that you are funneling upwards to your manager and your skip the wins of your teams so that you're not the bottleneck and it's just stuck on you. They want to see this. And there's some nifty ways to do this that make people feel really good. For example, let's say one of your top performers sends out a bi-weekly status report, and this one is uncommonly good news. The skip is your manager's boss, so two levels above you. Um, that was a question in chat. So let's say your direct report sends out a good biweekly report. Just forward that to your manager in the skip with one or two lines on the kudos and CC your direct report. Or if there's a leadership thread about this and it's someone's doing well and there's nothing confidential, just forward that to them. Say, FYI, great job on this. Because what you want is you want your direct reports to note and keep these as artifacts for their eventual promotion document, right? In a promotion document, there's going to be the hard facts, the results, but there's also going to be the anecdotal facts from the skips, the leadership, etc. So all of this just goes to help with that, and that's what really motivates your team as well. Um, let's see, Tanvi, anything else to add on this one?
Yeah, on the flip side though, right, I'll add that because as you start building this goes also to building trust with your teams, right? As they see you calling out their good work and so on and so forth. That is when the team starts trusting you to come to you with things that are not going well. Story again where we were building a generative AI prototype like a couple of years ago when things were super new and people were just in experimental phase of prototypes. And the prototype me and my team had built did not work in the very common fashion when we were on a larger team meeting. And although we had tested it, but based on my experience, had asked my direct report to always have a screen capture or a screen recording so we could play that as a part of it. But at that point in time, she did not fumble on the call, on the larger team call, right? She was like, yeah, that's okay. We have a screen recording. We are going to move forward. So, as a manager, if you don't build the trust, you are not deep with the team when it is needed, and you don't create the safe space, some of these last minute challenges that come to your team, you will not be able to enable them effectively to handle that. But if you build the trust, give them the kudos, celebrate the wins in a genuine fashion, right? Going back to Jason's point, just don't do it for the sake of doing it. Do it with authenticity, and people can sniff authenticity from way far off too. So that's a couple of things to add. Again, this is no cookie cutter mindset, or nothing is a perfect combination here. These are just learnings and tips and tricks that have worked or not worked along the way.
One important note on the operating principles here: you are not doing it in silo. Make sure you are aligned with this with your manager, your boss.
Correct.
Ideally, you actually pull a lot of this from what you're already doing with your boss. Because think about it, if you know the FAQs, the questions that your boss always asks, or their boss, or your skip, etc., or how to raise red flags to them, and it's effective, cascade it down to your team because it's going to make it easier on you, right? Because if it's a really big red flag, you most likely need to make sure your manager is up to date on that as well. So think about that as well. It's just streamlining the operating principles and process. Okay.
That's spot
Uh,
on, right? And Jason, that also goes back to finding the marriage between the bottoms up SOP versus the top down SOP, because you also don't want to come across, and especially this happens with the newer mindset shift of IC to manager, is you run fast on the execution. So you sometimes miss to bring the community together, especially your boss, and align things between your team and the boss, and then bring them together to run in resonance.
Now, okay,
Sorry.
so the good point here is yes, you want to take what's working from above you, but also flex your
Correct.
creativity and show your own judgment by introducing new things. Here's a good example because most of this is we're talking about first time or first line managers is leadership tends to be removed from customers, right? Your team, if you're customer facing, et cetera, might have more data or more anecdotes from those customers or other stakeholders. Create a FAQ where you collect some of those every week, those anecdotes, and then you could share it up, right? You might collect 20 to 50 a week, and only one or two are really insightful, and your manager should know about it. So that's where you could funnel it up, right? Because they're not going to have it in their SOP. Now, they might tell you to tell your team to get it, which could work. But think about things like that, right? Um, this works really well on two pieces: voice of the customer or voice of the stakeholder, on the ground, in the trenches, anecdotes, and then new technologies. Can you streamline a process? How can you invent a new metric? Or is there a new technology or AI tool that your team can use and adopt that then can be applied across the org, et cetera? Things like that. That's a superpower for younger, earlier in career teams. Okay. Uh, Last two slides, and then we'll get to Q&A. We have a course coming up, Get Promoted Faster. This is designed for people, ICs and managers with under 15 years of experience who want rapid career growth. I'll share the link later. You can take a look at it then. And then for Tanvi, I'll share these links later as well, right after this. But LinkedIn, Substack. Tanvi, what's TopMate?
So TopMate is a mentoring forum where I love to do some one-on-ones with people if they are wanting to do career changes or anything like that. I have myself led a journey as an immigrant in this country, so sharing some of the cultural shifts, mindset shifts that helped eventually with role transitions as well. So anything and everything that people might want to talk about as they are building their career through corporate America, basically.
Okay, great. And good book recommendations here. And definitely connect with Tanvi on LinkedIn. Okay, let's do some Q&A. I will stop the screen share. If anyone has a question, raise your virtual Zoom hand, and we will also monitor the Q&A tool. Let's see. Okay, let me see what we got here. Any questions? Oh, usually there's a long line. Maybe we were so clear that everyone knows
Yeah,
what to
everybody's
do.
got it. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Well, let me put some of these links in, and then let me share Tanvi's links. Oh, okay. So connect with Tanvi there. Um, and then I'll put the Maven link here. And if there are no questions, we can end it early. The one thing we would like is if you have a breakthrough or one of these tips helped you, just ping Tanvi and myself on LinkedIn and let us know. We love to hear from people.
Or if you think you discovered something new that we should probably incorporate in some of these conversations, we would be happy to do that too.
Oh, good point. Yes. See how Tanvi just closed the loop to help to bring the feedback? That's a good example. Oh, we do have a question, Tanvi, in chat. What was the
Okay,
hardest mindset shift for you?
a couple of them, but the biggest one was not just running to execution and not always coming in with an answer, right? Because as an individual contributor, your first gut instinct is okay, somebody's asking me a question, I should know the answer, or there is a deadline, I'm just running behind the deadline and I just need to execute with highest quality, right? So those were my two hardest mindset transitions. Sham, to your question, the way, if I may answer a follow up to this, right, the way to overcome that is to do some transition techniques, right? Because as a manager, you will start getting into a lot of back to back meetings and you will start getting a lack of context as you enter into meetings, right? So the way to look at that is I usually take 3 or 5 deep breaths before I transition from one meeting to the other, which give me the transition clue so that I don't get back into the mindset of like, I need an answer now. Or my team is going to miss a deadline, or I don't know what to do in this situation. So those kind of things. And also don't be afraid of asking questions in return, which gets you more clarity. That was also something that I did to overcome that mindset shift of rushing to execution.
Yeah, big plus one to that. I think a lot of top performing ICs that is their top challenge. For me, it was uh it's just solving the problems firsthand fast. And specifically if I already knew how to solve it, and I would kind of go back to my proven blueprint or playbook. But what that does is sometimes it blindsides you to figuring out new ways, right? So I was instead of being a coach, I was being more like an instructor and just telling people what to do and say, follow these 1, 2, 3 steps and just do it. I probably use that word a lot, just do it, which probably pissed off a lot of people. Not good. Um, early in my career, I won a ton of industry awards and I liked it. I liked the spotlight. But as I became more of a people leader, it had to shift to my team and those individuals winning, not me. So that was also a shift. Fun fact, Tanvi, I don't know if you know this, but I was on the team that won the first ever Amazon advertising award.
Oh,
Yeah, it was like a 300 by 250 and 728 by 90 display banner on Amazon.com for Sony Electronics, Alpha Camera. We put the crux of it was it was the first ad where the customer reviews and quote was in the ad. So it looked very organic. Anyways, I digress. So letting go of that is very hard, especially if you can do it faster and better, because you probably always think that. So
Yeah. You bring up a good point though, Jason, around instructor versus coach. So that's a good takeaway for me.
yeah, okay. Now we're getting a lot of
A
questions
lot of
about
questions.
that. Okay, here. Why don't we do this? Let's answer one of these anonymous ones, and then we'll scan the Zoom chat to see which ones we like. So I'll choose this one. What are some tips on giving feedback, both positive and negative?
Yes, I do. I think, Jason, my Level Up guest news post does cover that also in depth on having Q and having difficult conversations with your team members, right? But the key to that, to answer your question, is going back to building a relationship and earning the trust and being transparent, right? Because when you end up into a feedback or coaching kind of a conversation, it is usually not because of a one time situation. It is usually a trend that is happening, which has resulted in you and your team having a difficult conversation. So, coming up with data points, having a data driven conversation, and your team knowing that you have the best of their interest because you have set the right foundation and have earned the trust of your team members is the best way to have a difficult conversation or provide feedback to your team on what went well or what didn't go well. Usually, what went well is the easier side of the feedback. What didn't go well requires what I just discussed about.
Yeah, okay, so I'll
And be
add quick.
also, sorry,
Go ahead.
Jason, one quick thing is also controlling emotions, right? Because this can get a tricky situation. So being coming in prepared, being very cautious about your body language, your tone, your eye contact, how you're not coming across emotional or biased in this process is going to be extremely critical. So if you're not in the right mindset to do some of these things, don't do it that day. Move it.
Yeah, plus one to that. I will just add for both positive and negative, be very specific on the feedback. Hey, you did a great job presenting in that leadership meeting because of X, Y, Z. For negative, I like to be very direct and concise and say, this was the expectation. You fell short on it in this way, and these are one, two, three steps you can do to improve. And I know, and you have to be authentic. But let's say you do believe in this person, then always just end it. Look, I know you got it. So show it to us next time. I like to leave it pretty simple like that. Usually, okay, this is where I think it gets a little bit hotly debated. For positive feedback, in my opinion, you could do it publicly or privately. For negative feedback, you tend to want to do it privately, one on one. I know there's some big leaders out there who don't give two Fs and will do it publicly. That's okay. I think the more senior your direct reports are. So now we're talking about the senior executive level, the true leadership level. They can handle it. They're mature enough where they can handle it. But for first line managers, private is probably better for negative. Tanvi, what are your thoughts on that? It's highly debated.
It is highly debated, but I do it the same way, right? If I have like more early career talent type of team members, then I do it more one-on-one. If I have a principal or staff or senior staff kind of a team member, then they know, right? Like, hey, this is they have built their resilience. But on the flip side too, when I have an early career talent team or first line managers, I start coaching them on resilience too, right? Like, hey, if you have to grow, you have to build resilience. Then I also had a good feedback from one of my managers in the past saying that, hey, feedback is a gift. Right. So I also coach people on feedback is a gift, but that's also dependent on what type of feedback you're giving. If you're performance coaching somebody as a manager, then that feedback is a necessary situation and it's not a gift that you can accept or decline.
Yeah, yep. Tanvi, do you want to scan the Zoom chat and see which question you
Yes.
want to pick out?
Uh, I'll do the indirect management because I think we spoke about that. Jose asked. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly because we spoke a lot about direct leadership. Indirect leadership requires a lot of leading with influence, I think, because with leadership, there is a natural thought process around the hierarchy. or the chain, which shouldn't be there. We can talk about it more. This topic is super vast, so it's like how many things should we cover? But for indirect management, it is more about influence. And again, a very important skill to build there is how do people trust you? Are you kind of the point of contact for some Gen AI technology or some kind of sales processes, right? Something should be your brand that you have built and people are coming to you for that, then the overall team will start to trust. Also, for indirect management, like direct management, it's a very important skill to balance and choose which battle you want to fight and which battle you want to let go, depending on what impact that battle choosing or letting go is going to make on the business and your cross functional stakeholders.
Yeah, I would say it. So indirect, if we're talking about your peer, then it's a peer-to-peer relationship, right? It's about collaboration, winning together. If it's your peer's report, um, then the key is to get alignment with your peer. And to also know that, look, they're not your report, so you can't just order them what to do. But it's the same thing with your direct reports. You want to get aligned on what is the goal, how is it going to work for your team, their team, etc. I would lead it like that. But yeah, you can't just go around ordering people in this regard. The other way to do it is you can do it through your peer as well. Because remember, your peer may also be a new manager, or they might be a tenured manager, or they might be a manager who's looking to get promoted. So they have their own goals with their teams. So you don't want to just steamroll them and start running their team. You can say, hey, this person on your team's a high performer, or this person's a low performer. I need some help. Here's some feedback. How would you like to approach this together? But you want to let them lead their team. Okay. Tanvi, we could probably do one or two more questions. Any that stick out to your mind?
Yes, I'm going to do the one of unlearning because as a leader, I think, or a new leader specifically, right? We also get into a zone of like, hey, I need to learn this about my team. I need to learn this about this technology. Or we get put into teams because we are trusted by the leadership above us to run or turn the ship around in a couple of situations. So, unlearning is also important along the way. To specifically answer the question around what I'm actively trying to unlearn is sometimes it's okay to go slow to go fast, right? That's the skill that I'm trying to kind of um, learn because I'm trying to unlearn that sometimes going too fast is not good. The reason to balance this right now, especially in the transforming tech landscape that we are all a part of, is we need to spend time to understand what actually is our team delivering. How is it actually creating the right value proposition for our business to invest in that? And for that, you can't be in a mindset of like just keep trying things running fast and see what sticks. You need to take a step back, assess the situation 360-degree, and then put the right path forward. So I'm unlearning going too fast sometimes.
This question, I don't know if I have an answer for this right now, so I'll share something else. I was recently last week at a CEO dinner in Honolulu, and one of the other leaders, this person was in a completely different industry, in the mortgage industry, but the whole discussion revolved around um, how do you grow a business while reducing complexity? Because there's many ways to grow a business and scale, hire, grow, and the complexity increases. That tends to be the easier route and a very good route in that case as well. But this whole discussion was about how do you reduce complexity while you grow, and part of that was shifting high performers on your team to other roles that you believe are more beneficial in the future, notably around AI, because you don't want to let them go because they're almost like a general athlete who you believe that could play many different roles. So the discussion revolved how do you do that? It's not easy, but you do it through a lot of these mechanisms by telling them, look, this is where I think the puck is going. I think we all need these types of skills, and I think you could be the one who leads us there. But I need you. How do you see yourself in this type of role? So related to leadership, but not really like a habit I'm trying to unlearn. It's like a new habit I'm trying to learn. Okay. Tanvi, is there one more you want to do?
Do you want to choose this time?
Let's see. I'm looking. Um, let's see.
I can ask a question if
Uh,
you want
oh yeah, yeah.
directly.
Santi, the first verbal question. Go for it.
So, Hanvi, let me ask you this. How did you define what your team does and communicate it to your team members, upward and across to your peers, and not let someone else define that for you?
Yeah, goes back to taking control of the situation, which is also a skill to be learned as a manager, right? Because, and this can be answered, Santi, for you as firstly, good question, in two parts, right? Depends on if you're inheriting a team that is in a messy situation or inheriting a team that is performing really well, or you're building a team from scratch, right? Most recently, my experiences have been around the first one is inheriting teams and turning the ship around. For that, the way I define that and stand my ground and go ahead with transparency to my leadership team is I'm going to need 30 days. This is what I am going to do is understand my team, understand the goals, understand what was done before. And after 30 days, I'm going to communicate to you a plan of execution, standard operating procedure, roles and responsibility document. You can call it 100 names, right? But the goal is to be transparent with your leadership too as to what your team will be doing and what they won't be doing. On the team side, what I do is I'm a big fan of start, stop, continue exercises because everybody these days runs around in circles trying to just gobble up everything that is there on their plate and somehow deliver. So the start, stop, continue helps to feed into the roles, responsibilities, the vision, the mission, and then eventually we can easily translate that in a easy to digestible format to senior leadership who is context switching between meetings. Jason, you want to add anything here?
Yeah, so there's a lot of nuance that goes into this question, but broadly speaking, um, there are two main ways. Either your leadership team is going to come down like a thunder and say, these are your goals, go ship them. Like that's pretty clear. Or if it's unclear, then this is your opportunity to be proactive as the manager and tell them what your recommendation is. Could be a simple one, two pager and say, as Tommy laid out, this is what I see as our goals, and this is how I'm going to get there in my 30, 60, 90-day plan with this team. Now, there's also two types of teams I've been part of. It's interesting because so from the big company standpoint, the roles and responsibilities are usually very clearly defined. You are this level, you're this role, you're this role, you do this, this is your job. So that's usually spelled out. For the smaller startup or pirate teams I've been part of, it's mostly focused on this is the problem we need to solve. You are in charge of this problem. Like, go figure it out and pull us in if you need it. And then you, person X or Y, you're in charge of this problem. You could delineate by either roles and responsibilities first, or you can delineate by problems first. Now, delineating by problems first, that's usually for smaller teams with highly ambiguous things to solve, but that each person is usually pretty high performing. So that you, as the leader in this case, have some confidence that they're going to get it done, or they know how to escalate, etc. Or they're just frankly a super resourceful go-getter. They don't have much experience, but they'll figure it out, and you're all just going to learn along the way. So the nuance really breaks down there. But I would say, no matter what, here's the bottom line. If you are not given the playbook, then this is your opportunity to create the playbook. This is how you are going to leapfrog and fast track your visibility to leadership. Because leaders pay attention to those who wait around and are told what to do versus those who step up and say, look, this is the problem. This is my suggestion. And then now think about it. If you give that to your leader, they have really three main responses to you. Yes, I love it. Go do it. This is good. Have you thought about XYZ? So now you just got good feedback. Or the third one is no, you're a bumbling buffoon. This is wrong. Let me tell you why you're wrong. Well, at least at this way you got feedback and you're not going to go down the wrong path. But either way, the clear thing is you want an answer. It's kind of like raising money from venture capitalists. The worst answer is something gray and in the middle, ambiguous. Oh, we like you, but we're not going to give you money yet. Maybe in a couple months, come back to us. No. Your job as the founder, CEO, raising money from a VC is to get a yes or to get a no, because so you can just move on with your life, right? Um, so that's kind of what you want in this case. Even with AI, I'll tell you like a quick little story because someone asked about a story in anonymously in this chat. Is one of my friends works at a FANG company, leads the data analytics and science team. This was when AI just started to really bubble up, like maybe 2 years ago. He was very early into it. He was building on it on the side, and he knew the writing on the wall. The next charter was for him to grow his team by I think additional 15 headcount. So make his team even larger. But he proactively went to leadership and said, I don't need this headcount anymore that was already approved. I just need 7 people. And I'm gonna close the delta and produce even more by using these AI tools. They loved it. They said good. And guess what? No joke. They gave him a bigger team later because they said, well, you're doing well already. What can you do with more resources? Go. So, he won
That's so
best of both
spot
worlds.
on, Jason,
Yeah.
right? Like, if I could add one thing, it's very important to learn to listen to your inner gut voice as a leader, going back to writing on the wall, because you have exposure and a larger windshield. So you know what's kind of coming down the line and you can read between the lines and then use that to create a point of view or create an initiative and go ahead with that to your leadership team. They will definitely appreciate that. I always say that I don't have anything against cats, but don't be a complaint cat. Right? Come to the table with some solution rather than just always coming to me with a problem because it gets frustrating after a certain point in time.
Yeah, 100%. You always share your point of view. And be smart about it, back it up with data,
Yep.
back it up with anecdotes, share why you believe it. You can even share your confidence level. Sometimes you can say, look, this is an instinct call based on XYZ. Um, you
Agree.
know, but people respect that. There is something, there's that famous quote, power respects power. Leaders respect that because here's the truth, not maybe some of them, but they all do not have the answers. And they're looking for you to help them with it. You don't always have to have the answer, but you can help them with data and insights to come to an answer, right? That's really powerful. So yeah, great stuff. Okay, Tanvi, we went way over.
Yeah, we
Almost
went way
double.
over, but this is exciting. I
Yeah.
think we can close out on Sham's question is
Oh.
if your team described your leadership 6 months from now, what would you want them to say? Oh, of course, I would want them to say how lovely I am. No, I'm just kidding. In addition to that, like I would definitely want them to say that, hey, she has helped me grow. She has helped me give the right feedback that has helped translate to find the mission that they were here to serve. We have built a great relationship. We have shipped XYZ number of products. We also had strong disagreements, but still we came to a conclusion without feeling like, oh, she's going to be behind my back on performance and so on and so forth. So I'd love them to describe me as somebody who always insists on the highest standards, but in a very people focused, human oriented way.
I love it. I think Tanvi definitely indexes more in the human-focused, people-oriented way than I do, but I do somewhat, but Tanvi is very good at it. For me, it would be we kicked butt, we worked really hard, we delivered big results, we had fun, and the last thing is uh, I will go wherever Jason goes.
That's amazing.
Because whenever you switch teams or companies or do a new startup, you always want to have, as the leader, you always want that short list of people who are like, I'm gonna call this person up, and 99.9% they're gonna come join me because we're gonna kick butt, deliver results again together, and have fun. And everyone's gonna be rewarded, right? That's what you want. For a lot of senior level leaders that I know, let's call it VP, SVP, C-suite and above, whenever they take on new roles, sometimes part of the negotiation package, and debatable if this is written down or if it's just agreed upon, like verbal handshake, is there's always like spots for at least one or two of their lieutenants to come join them. because especially if they're quite new to the company, they don't want to start completely from cold. So they always want to bring people. It's funny when you look at these big companies and you see a big executive go to a smaller company, just always pay attention in the next 4 to 6 months because there's always one or two lieutenants.
There is a trail that follows behind for sure.
Big trail.
Yeah, my all my large scoped roles have been somebody has tapped me on the shoulder even before the job rec internally or externally opened up. So we should do a session on networking and the key aspects of networking, but this is amazing.
That's a good one. Yeah. Thank you, Tanvi, for joining us. You dropped a lot of great insights, and everyone connect with her on LinkedIn. Thanks again, Tanvi.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Jason, for the amazing partnership.